One. All right, welcome to the Two Teachers Talking Hoops podcast, where we are now recording and good to go. All right, Adam, how we doing?
Um, Good. Just got back from vacation. Nice, relaxing week. So, how are you doing?
Um, I just got back from vacation as well. Uh, Relaxing enough now, and
Yeah,
now I'm back to the grind of
yeah.
um dropping my son off at camp and bringing him to the library and bringing him kayaking, and
Wow.
still haven't run yet, so that's gonna be more like a 7 o'clock endeavor tonight.
I ran, so
I saw that.
I already beat you.
This might this could change into a running podcast. We don't know.
God, running
Um,
my 3 miles.
yeah, I hopefully will get in seven.
There you go.
All right. Cold open question of the week. I had one, and then I went away from it, but I couldn't end up on a uh one that I really like. So I'll go back to my original one. I'll try to keep my cold open questions more of a couple word answer type thing. But when is with the college basketball season starting in November? Uh, when's your season start? Like November, like the actual games in November.
Yeah, beginning of November, and then your practices start October 15th. That's when the
Okay,
NCAA um kind of gives you the green light that you can start practicing. So basically, you have almost a month
so that's a good jumping off
practice.
point then, right? So if you start October,
Yeah,
D1, at least high level D1s, right, start in July,
yeah.
August ish. And then they go on their international tours and they do all that.
Mhm.
So how how early is too early to start a kind of full on practice, whether we're talking football, basketball?
I mean, for a high debt level D1, I think it's about, I mean, well, they have their off-season workouts, and then, this is kind of like their pre-practice time before they actually get into it. Like, I think a lot of the preseason work, even at the Division 3 level, is like you want to kind of hone in your concepts and your conditioning before the season starts. Because right when day one, October 15th of the season, you're expected to be in as close as the best condition you can be in. And then you're also expected to kind of be able to grasp those concepts in game situations. It's a lot of in game situations that you're working on in practice and kind of using your IQ and using your team concepts, you know, and kind of meshing with the team, because the good teams have the chemistry right away. And if you can start that on day one of practice, you're going to have a great season. I think October 15th is probably a good date. Maybe, maybe I'd have it maybe a week less. So I'd have October 22nd the start, kind of, because I feel like at least in Division 3 level, I'm sure it happens at the Division 1 level. You kind of have the bad couple of days of practice because every team's going to have that. Because I mean, when you've been going on for 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to have a couple of bad days where you know how players are, they itch to play a game and, subconsciously kind of lose motivation or kind of dip in practice, not on purpose, but just because, their mindset's somewhere else. But also coaches do a lot of good things with that. They put some in-game scrimmages in with other teams behind doors. Even though Duke and Kansas do it, that doesn't mean that Division 3 teams don't do it. You usually have about 2 or 3 scrimmages.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'd say maybe a week later is good because you have all your preseason time that you're working on all that too. And I think just maybe dipping that a little and then getting back into that the week later would probably be good too.
So are you guys calling up Frank Martin to give UMass a little tune up?
Well, is Frank Martin going to respond to our podcast like he does on Twitter to everyone? Because
He might.
I'm not going to say something if listen, I have nothing bad to say about
I
Frank
could
Martin,
tag. He said
honestly.
Frank Martin on Twitter. He was like, "We'll play anyone. Like we like. we want to play. He's going real hard out how he wants to play BC. Like his
Well,
big thing is like BC's right from us. So if we tag him, he might come down and play Elms.
I want Frank Martin to be my coach because I love Frank Martin. Like Frank, I have nothing bad to say about him. The UMass is going to be in the right direction with him. Give him maybe not this year, but in a couple of years they're going to be a contender in the A10.
How much? Well, so that we'll transition to that in a second because we'll talk about the A10 will exist at that point in time. Let me finish up this point because I had this thought the other day. If if you were playing, it might be a bit of a stretch to say like a Tyrese Proctor, but like let's take a guy. Um, let's take the sixth man on UMass,
Hmm.
right? Is in an all out game. What's a more competitive game? You versus six man on UMass, or you versus me?
Oh, that's not. I guarantee. I mean, I'm not like. See, in my mind, I'd like to think that I can hang with them, but I mean, these kids are just at a whole other level. I mean, I don't know. The six man on UMass,
But
I
do you
like
think
to
you
think,
score a point? Like if you played hard defense on me, do you think I score a point on you? If you didn't let me shoot an open jumper,
yeah, I think you would. I think I would score a point. Would I win like a one-on-one game? No, because the six man on UMass is probably like 6'10"
yeah.
and like 230. But could I score? I think so. Well, actually, I'm gonna say yes, I'd score because I'm not gonna like throw myself under the bus here. I think I could score. Um, but like I don't think it would be very competitive.
All right. Okay. Conference realignment. We could talk about something different, but everyone else is talking about conference realignment, so that's the direction we'll go in. Um, I guess
Should we take a
start.
moment? Should we take a moment of silence first for the Pac-12 because they're dead now? Conference of Champions is no more.
Bill Walton's gonna be sad.
Yeah, I know. He was the first one I thought of, but
They may Bill Walton may not even know that like this happens because like when I watch him do like announce games,
I love him.
I don't know if he's even like watching the product. Like he in his mind by far thinks that the Pac-12 is the greatest conference then, now, forever.
Yeah. Well, it's not anymore. They only got four teams left. So
Now, will they? So I guess you start there, right? Is the Pac-12 going to attempt to reload? Do those four teams go to the Mountain West? I think there was talk about before this all happened, like a month ago. I
mhm.
think there was talk about the Pac-12 and the ACC trying to do something because they were the ones that were of the Power Five that were kind of left on the outside because the
Yeah.
SEC, Big Ten, Big 12 were making so many moves that the Pac-12 and the ACC were like, well, if we're going to make some money, we should probably try and work together.
Mm.
But
Well,
like, it's the conference realignment thing's so weird, right? Because let's say
yeah.
they did work together, like BC is going to play
Yeah,
Stanford, you know?
exactly. Yeah. Because the only four teams left are Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State.
Yeah,
So if you're someone like BC, Virginia, um, what are some other, some schools more north than,
yeah,
Durham or Chapel Hill, that's a long trip you're taking all the way out to the West Coast.
yeah,
And like I think the big part of it, which I'm going to give the Mizzou coach Eli Drinkwitz props for this, that he's like nobody ever asks the student athletes how they're going to feel about it because he's
mm,
even like you're going to have all these kids, especially in softball and baseball. Um, you can make the case for basketball and football too. Take this trip. Say you're someone like Nebraska and you're going to Washington. That's like 1,600 miles.
yeah,
Then you've got to play your game, board on the commercial flight, fly back. You're probably getting back around 3 a.m. And then these kids got to wake up and go to class the next day.
yeah.
And he's like, he's the biggest thing about mental health is rest and sleep. And he's like, if these kids aren't getting, normal rest to function, then how can we expect them throughout the course of, a 30 game season, especially in basketball? When it comes tournament time, are we going to see burnout because of all these trips?
And I think with NIL, I don't know if people even care. right? I
Yeah.
think people are almost like, well, suck it up, you're getting played, you're getting
Yeah.
paid to play the sport now, but like
Hmm.
you're still, in theory, a student athlete, right? And
Yeah.
like, but yeah, you're right. With all those other sports, those non-revenue sports,
Hmm.
those kids that, while
Yeah.
the basketball football players ideally are going to class
Yeah.
and doing work. I know Duke a lot, and I don't know if it's the same thing with like, women's soccer or whatever, but I
Hmm.
know a lot of the Duke basketball players will take, I think they take like three courses in the summer or something, so that way
Hmm.
they go lighter during the
Yeah.
basketball season. But if your soccer team's not doing that, then they're
Hmm.
taking this full course load as they're
Yeah.
traveling all across the country.
Yeah. Because it's like UCLA and USC, I think I saw that they're going to earn 75 million a year to make those trips to somewhere like Nebraska or I don't know. Because what are they? They're joining the Big Ten, so um, Illinois, Indiana,
Mhm.
Iowa, they're getting $75 million a year. But someone like Oregon and Washington, where, that's not a high, I guess considered a high level school like UCLA, they're not making money out of this. They're
Yeah,
already struggling on their budget. And then to fly, X amount of miles, almost halfway across the country to, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, they're playing a game and they're losing money
yeah.
to play someone like Maryland or Northwestern who's making the same amount as them and, traveling less
Hmm.
in their conference. So there's some winners, but I think there's a lot of losers
But
in this
they're making
conference realignment.
$75 million a year, and
Yeah.
school's still going to cost $80,000 a year to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's like these school. It's like this big race. It feels like to
Hmm.
have the most impressive like college campus,
Yeah.
but then it just makes college cost so much more money because
Hmm.
like they're paying, they make all this money, so then they go and they pay like, Jim Calhoun, like,
Hmm.
uh
Yeah.
or not Jim Cal Gino, or the UConn
Yeah.
women's coach there. They pay him whatever,
Yeah.
$5 million a year, $10 million a
Mhm.
year, and so
Yeah.
now your commuter to UConn has to
Yeah.
pay an extra $10,000 a year to go to UConn.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't know. I thought about because with the four teams in the Pac-12 left, is somebody like Gonzaga gonna join the Pac-12? And
That's what they need,
are
right? Like,
UNLV and Colorado State and Boise State, all those Mountain West conferences? But then it's also like, I'm sorry, but like no one wants to play Cal. No one wants to play Oregon State.
yeah,
Like they suck.
yeah. Oregon State. I remember Duke played them last year, and
Yeah.
I was watching or listening to a podcast, and they said Oregon State was like, it, they were like 350th out of like
Yeah.
363 like D1 basketball teams.
Yeah. And like nobody, I thought about that, and then I was like, no, like nobody wants to play these teams. So I could see the WCC and the Mountain West absorbing those teams more than I can see the Pac-12 absorbing other teams. Because now the Big 12 is I think like 16 teams now, and then the Big 10 is 18. So that was a huge, and even the schools that we're not talking about, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, all joined, I think it was the Big 12, which is ultimately the big winner of the day. I mean, they got better, and I think it starts with Arizona,
Yeah.
who, in the terms of basketball landscape, now have plenty of opportunity to already boost their resume come tournament time even more because you're playing Kansas twice a year, Kansas State twice a year, TCU.
Yeah. And they just picked up Houston, or Houston's
Yeah,
going to it this year.
yeah. So Houston won't go 33-4 obviously this
Yeah.
year, but it's better for them. But I mean, if we're going to look at our big loser, it's the Pac-12. I mean, the
Yeah.
commissioner, he didn't boost ratings or competition. He lost out to Big 10 and Big 12, and I'm sure the SEC for ESPN and Fox, and then he was unaware of Oregon and Washington leaving. They kind of did that behind his back, so it's like he was put in a very weird situation. And then now when you look at it, I mean, the Pac-12 has been there for 108 years or something like that, and now it's gone basically. I mean, I don't see how there's any way that they can save this conference because you're not going to add a high level team like Arizona or
Yeah.
Arizona State or someone like that.
What do you think happens to some of these like as the conferences get bigger? That the name I
Mhm.
keep hearing get tossed around is Vanderbilt. Right?
Yeah,
As like the conferences get better, are they eventually like, you know what, Vandy, like we just don't need you in the
yeah,
SEC, right? Like you're like I guess you're good to be here because everyone gets to beat you, so it's
mhm.
a pretty easy win.
Yeah,
But like if we are, because look at this, I mean, they add Oklahoma and Texas. So you got Oklahoma, Texas, and you got Bama and Florida and
mhm.
Tennessee and Kentucky. Like,
Yeah,
what is Vandy? The only thing I can tell you about Vanderbilt is that my wife almost went to school there, and
mhm.
uh, Jerry Stackhouse is the basketball coach.
Mhm. Well, I can tell you that Vanderbilt went 22-15 last year and made it to the semifinals of the SEC tournament. They should have been in the tournament. I forget who was in it. I think they should have. Who's in the first four? Oh, they should have took Nevada's spot. Nevada had no business being in that tournament, but
I
they,
do remember them turning around. I remember Jerry
yeah,
Stackhouse like
yeah,
saying this team sucked basically,
yeah,
and
and
then
then they
eventually
turned it
like they got
around.
together.
So I think they're around the corner. I was surprised about the Oklahoma grab. I mean, Porter Moser is a good coach, but they're not going anywhere. They're kind of your prototypical 16 and 16 team, or somebody who looks like they're going to turn around, especially after they beat Alabama last year and then never does. So I think someone like Vanderbilt is safe for now because there's much worse, there's a lot of worse teams in the SEC
Yeah,
than Vanderbilt, like
I mean
Georgia,
Georgia basketball's been pretty bad.
Georgia, South Carolina, LSU was bad, Ole Miss was bad. Like there's way worse teams than Vanderbilt in the SEC right now. I'm interested because where is Vanderbilt?
It's like around Nashville.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I
I
mean,
mean,
there's definitely, and I mean, it like because the SEC is so like because people that live in the South are
yeah,
so proud of where they live. Like
yeah,
if if you live in Florida or Miami,
hmm
you're not necessarily a guy. I guess Miami's bad because I guess you are, but like Georgia Tech and stuff like that. But the people that
hmm
live in these southern states are like, oh, like I love Alabama, I love
hmm
the thing that hurts Vandy a little bit is Vandy's supposed to be like the Harvard of the South. It's supposed
yeah,
to be a really really good medical school,
hmm
and so it's I think that almost maybe hurts some of the players that they're getting in because the
hmm
academic standards are probably a little bit tougher.
yeah. I mean, all right. I think Vanderbilt's safe. I mean, if anything, it's more competition. And for some schools at the bottom of the conference, it gets
So
harder for them.
yeah,
I mean, LSU went 14 and 19, South Carolina 11 and 21, and they're already rebuilding with, Matt McMahon and, for LSU is a great coach, but it takes time to build your program. And I think you're going to see that with a lot of new teams that they're going to struggle a little bit, especially some of the Big 12 teams like UCF. Johnny Dawkins did a great job with his group this year, but when you're gonna play Houston, Kansas, Kansas State, Arizona, possibly in a 4 game stretch. Tell me that's not tough for someone like that versus someone like in Arizona who will probably have no problem in the Big 12 whatsoever. I
yeah,
I think I think the SEC and the Big Ten are not as affected by it as the Big 12 is. And I find it interesting that UCLA didn't go to the Big 12 and instead went to the Big 10 because the Big 12 is the more superior conference right now. So it's kind of piqued my curiosity why they decided to go to the Big 12. But obviously this is not the same UCLA team as last year
yeah,
because Hawkes and Campbell and the rest of the crew's gone. But still someone with that kind of storied success, it makes you wonder, like, did they kind of choose where they go, or was it kind of set up where they would leave at an automatic date?
yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, since we're an ACC podcast,
Mm-mm. I remember that, but okay.
Um, well, two things about the ACC. One, uh, we are basketball, but Notre
Oh,
Dame.
yeah.
Does Notre Dame eventually get forced into joining a conference full on with their football?
I don't think so.
I mean, they make so much money. NBC
I
gives them so much money.
I thought I read somewhere that Notre Dame was kind of like an independent
I
with
think
football.
they're independent football and they're ACC and everything else. I think.
Yeah.
But they've always been the independent in. So here's the thing. But the thing that might make or break them not be independent, and I don't watch. I actually Notre Dame's the only college football team I watch, but they um with the playoffs with the college football playoffs,
Mhm.
it's an easier road for Notre Dame to get there,
Yeah.
especially if they
Oh,
join
yeah.
the ACC, because ACC's football isn't that great besides Clemson. That it's an easier road for them to get to the playoffs if they're in a conference they can win their conference,
Hmm.
because you can have a bad or not bad record, but you can lose like two games and still
Yeah.
get to the conference championship.
Hmm.
Um, but the thing that's been kind of going around is at some point do these power conferences just say the heck with the NCAA tournament and we're going to do our own college football playoffs and we're going to do our own March Madness and we're not going to deal with the regulations of the NCAA anymore.
Hmm. I mean, I think March Madness is always going to be there for basketball. I know the college football, I think, is expanding to 12,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is good for them because, I mean, four's, I don't know, I'm not in favor of four
Yeah.
because it's over
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's all for TV and promotional things too that they're sending it to 12. I think March Madness will always be there for college basketball. Maybe you'll see like, I mean, I don't know. They have you know, the Big 12, what was it? What was it? Big 10 ACC and then Big 12 SEC,
Yeah.
I think, but they changed that now. I
Yeah.
think
Now
it's
it's
ACC,
ACC,
SEC.
SEC. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're always going to have tournaments like that, which is actually good because especially in, somewhere like March Madness where you're trying to boost your resume, that ends up working out in favor for you. Who does Duke have in the ACC SEC challenge?
Arkansas,
Okay.
easy win.
God.
They
I
won't
don't
lose.
know who Arkansas has,
They won't
but
lose in the non-conference this year.
who
Arkansas, check.
that's
Baylor,
for
check.
that's for a later date. We'll do a Duke preview one of these shows when they have their full schedule out.
Michigan State, definitely check.
Wow, you're a little I hope you're not like kind of calling on the fates here to have Duke lose a game because you're so just predetermined that they're
They're
gonna
gonna
win.
lose at Virginia Tech. They suck at Virginia Tech.
I feel like they always lose out Virginia
Yeah.
Tech. Yeah.
But so with Duke and the ACC, with all this changing and stuff, I feel like the two draft. So probably Clemson football's been down a touch a little bit of late, but football's still good. I feel
Mhm.
like the biggest driving name in the ACC at the big money sports is North Carolina,
Mhm.
because basketball wasn't great, but it will rebound and still a big basketball name. Football has been pretty good,
Mhm.
and so I feel like if someone's gonna try to nab someone from the ACC, it'd be like, like if the SEC wants someone, they might go North Carolina. But I feel like if you go North Carolina, you have to get Duke, because
Yeah.
Duke's football has been better of late. It's not great, but they've been to a couple bowl games the past couple of years. So
Mhm.
I feel like if you want to still have the home and home, or the home and away with Duke and North Carolina, where they play twice, if you get UNC, you'd want Duke to kind of keep that rivalry going. But even if
Mhm.
you just take UNC, right,
Yeah.
or especially UNC and Duke, but if you take UNC and bring them to the SEC, does that is ACC done at that point, right? If UNC or Duke leaves ACC, does the conference eventually fold?
I don't think it folds, but it would not be the same. I mean, in my mind, I can't ever picture UNC or Duke leaving the ACC because, I mean, when you think of the ACC, that's who you think of. So I think it'd be weird for a lot of people. I don't think it will happen, but I also don't think the ACC would fold because now it seems like in the changing landscape that, you lose a team, you're automatically going to get someone.
Hmm.
So like, say you lose Duke, but then you get Kentucky, another blue blood,
Yep.
and everybody will be like, oh, wait a second, let's not panic here because we have somebody. Geographically, I think maybe the most sense for the SEC is Georgia Tech because it's right there. But obviously, from a competitive standpoint, again, sorry, Georgia Tech, you don't want Georgia Tech in your conference for football or basketball, especially if you're someone like Kentucky. Um, but I can't see them ever leaving the ACC because I think they're the pinnacle of what the ACC is. It'd be a different story if you said someone like Georgia Tech was leaving, then I'd be like, oh, all right,
Yeah.
Georgia Tech.
I wonder if you ever get the tough part with some of these things, because I'm looking at some of the mid-major programs,
Hmm.
and the hard part to figure out is, so you got Gonzaga and stuff, but you got like a Vermont who
Hmm.
pretty consistently makes the tournament, and part of that probably is
Yeah.
just the best team in their division and stuff.
Yeah.
But or even like uh who was this past year? UMass Lowell, right? Who
Hmm.
started playing well. Um, those teams seem like they could be pickups for some
Hmm.
conferences, but then they don't bring the football aspect,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if I'm a Power Five conference, is it worth me picking Gonzaga? Yes, right. But beside Oral Roberts, is it worth me picking up an Oral Roberts if they're only really going to give me men's basketball?
I don't
You
think
know?
so. I mean, I don't know. Someone like Oral Roberts just doesn't fit the picture, the internal picture when you think of the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the ACC, SEC. I could go on and on. And I think, because BYU joined the Big 12,
Mm-hmm.
even you look at it football, especially basketball, they're going to struggle. It's going to take some time, but it's weird like BYU's in the Big 12, like, and you're like, why? Because it's like, it's not, I'm not saying that BYU doesn't deserve to be in the Big 12, but it's like, do they belong there? And I think it's more of smaller teams don't belong with the big dogs. Someone like Kansas, or because then automatically if you move and then you tank and you're terrible,
Mm-hmm.
you got no way out. And I think a lot of mid majors are fine where they are. So I'd say no. It's all about, I guess, what the school thinks is best for them.
10 minutes to go.
All right, that went by fast.
Without looking it up, can you name the team that came in last place in the A10 this year in basketball?
The A10 in basketball. It was definitely it was Notre Dame, I think, right?
No, A10.
Oh,
A10.
A10?
Yeah.
Loyola Chicago.
I didn't even know they were in that division.
Yeah, yeah, Loyola Chicago. I think they won like what, 8 games?
10, 10
10?
total. Yeah,
10
they're
total.
14 in the conference.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, like, because we mentioned UMass earlier, and looking at, like, do teams
Hmm.
start getting picked out of these sort of like high mid major? Like the
Hmm.
A10's gone down, but maybe it's just
Yeah.
because we live in Massachusetts, and like I grew up in where like UMass was okay. Like I was how old I was. I was I was 10 when
Hmm.
Marcus Camby played for UMass and led
Yeah.
them to I forget, I mean, how far they went. The Final Four, I think.
Final four, yeah.
Um, so UMass was pretty good, and so like I don't see them, and I think you look at like a VCU, a Dayton,
Yeah.
they have some success. So if you pick out like Davidson, let's say the ACC is like, you know what? We just want a couple more teams. We have
Hmm.
15. We kind of just want to get to 20 just for the heck
Hmm.
of it. Maybe they pick up a Davidson because it's in North Carolina,
Yeah.
or even a VCU because that's still close.
Hmm.
So if the A10 somehow goes down to 13 or 12, right now they have 15. Do they just pick up like BU and UMass Lowell to like I mean, I've always thought that there should be a like New England Northeast type conference with UMass, UConn. I mean, UConn won't join it
Hmm.
because of basketball, but for every other sport, UConn could probably join it.
Yeah.
Like Maine, Vermont,
Hmm.
because they're all like around the same. Besides UConn basketball, everything
Hmm.
else is kind of pretty similar.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think the A10, it's tough with mid majors to tell because I think it's easier, I think, for a mid major to add, especially if someone like Davidson lost, I think it's easier for a mid major to be like, if you wanted to contact someone like Vermont or Maine, of course they're going to move up
Yeah.
because it's a higher. So I think it's easier for them than versus like the Pac-12 because the A10, even though the A10 had a horrible year last year, they're still competitive.
Hmm.
Now, someone like the Pac-12 who isn't competitive, it's harder for a conference like that. I don't think the A10 will fold if they lose. I think they'll just try and continue to add to keep it at the 15, 16 teams that they have.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for a while, the A10 looked like they had at least 3 or 4 March Madness teams, and then
Yeah.
things went downhill, and that was it.
Let's wrap it up with this. Let me ask you which team made the the best decision and which team made the worst decision in moving. So we
To
have
move
Oregon, UCLA, USC, Washington, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Oklahoma, and Texas. Those are all the ones that have moved recently.
Hmm. I think the best decision was Arizona. I mean, that even football, the Arizona is still competitive in football, but basketball, that was the best decision for them. They're going to be competitive now, more competitive with Kansas State, TCU, all those teams I mentioned,
Hmm.
especially in a storied conference like a Big 12. That was the best possible move for them, especially boosting your resume. That's what it's all about come tourney time. They'll have the schedule and they'll have, the teams to play for that opportunity. I think the worst decision, I mean, geez, I could list a three-way tie here, but I don't know. It's got to be Washington or I'm going to go Washington. I'm going to go Washington here. Washington already a low budget,
Hmm.
just just a 500 team, nothing special last year. And now you're telling them that they got to go play on top of UCLA and USC, and they got to play Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois. I mean, Washington just doesn't get better from here. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's going to be tough to win 16 games in the Big Ten. I mean, it's tough to win 19 for someone like Iowa.
Hmm.
So for someone like Washington, it's tough. I guess my second place loser would be Utah because they're in the Big 12 and that's not any better.
Yeah.
But they got a little bit of a better budget. But Washington already with a low budget, having to travel all that way, it's sky's not looking any clearer for them.
Hmm.
What about you? Who's your big winner?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd probably lean towards Arizona as well.
Hmm.
It's I something about Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC.
Hmm.
Just like I feel like they just kind of fit there.
Hmm.
Like they seem like SEC programs, at least from
Yeah.
a football standpoint. Like Oklahoma and Texas
Hmm.
want to be
Yeah.
Alabama.
Hmm.
Basketball wise,
Texas will be more competitive.
yeah, and I think maybe, I mean, they were already pulling in good players.
Hmm.
Maybe the SEC motivates that even more. Maybe people are like,
Hmm.
hey, our football team's going to do well. So,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Texas was already looking pretty good anyways in the basketball front, but like maybe they're like that raises the bar even more to
Yeah.
to get some players and they think that they'll get some more primetime games out of it. I mean, a lot of people go to Duke because of the brand, obviously, but what the brand gets you is, at least every 2 weeks, probably every week, you're playing on ESPN.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so like that's, I think, you can't turn down these matchups, right? If you're Texas, you're like, well, I get to play Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas A&M. These all sound pretty good. Like, so we could probably get on TV a whole bunch.
Yeah. That's going to be a good matchup, Texas A&M, Texas.
Yeah.
We'll get the win, but you know, Buzz always has his guys ready. Where's the Texas A&M Duke matchup? Shire's too scared.
It probably coming soon,
He'll
right?
be
Like,
he'll be out coached like Coach K was, and you guys just got lucky off the missed lob in the tournament
I really wanted to play Tennessee this year. I
to
think
lose
UNC
again
is playing
because
Tennessee.
Plavchich will just show up and start elbowing guys again.
The rumor was Duke, Kentucky.
That'd be good, but instead you got Arkansas.
Yeah, which is probably the easy. I mean, out of Kentucky, Tennessee, Bama. I guess Bama's going to be down a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean you could have gotten Georgia. That would have been easier,
all
or South Carolina. Whoever got South Carolina is like no problem.
right, we're less than a minute, so
Close it
that was,
off here.
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, we'll pick it back up either Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right,
And we'll thank all our viewers for tuning in.
yep. We'll see the thousands of you next time.
Yes. All right. Take care, guys.
All right.